Staying within the Sony realm, wanted to bring up another thing that came up, and like you mentioned, this was something that came up on another podcast that I listened to, and they were talking about Returnal and the difficulty scale. So they were talking to it from about an accessibility standpoint, but there has been a lot of discussion about Returnal and the difficulty that it has as a roguelike game. Adam, have you played Returnal at all?
I mean, I'm waiting for that one to be at least half off, but it's definitely on my radar. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It looks fantastic. It's not my kind of game, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I was going to bring this up. So Zarmina Khan at PlayStation Lifestyle wrote, she was writing about this little issue. So she said, Housemarque's Returnal released to positive reviews yesterday. Obviously, this is a little dated now. But in a world where players and critics are increasingly talking about difficulty and accessibility, there's plenty of discourse surrounding the game's difficulty. In response to the studio has said it's known for making games that are easy to learn and hard to master, making it a development philosophy. Speaking to IGN, game director Harry Kruger argued that Housemarque wants players to have a strong sense of accomplishment, marketing and business development. And then continues, marketing and business developer director Mikhail Havary added, and I quote, "We started development 4 years ago, and I don't think the vision has changed that much. Housemarque games are known for their, let's say, challenge. There's usually difficulty to them. Next, Ex Machina, for example, you can go through the game on easy, but you'll never get the last level. And then there's other unlockables and so on. So there's an easy to learn but hard to master mentality at work there." And so the guys, I was listening to the PlayStation PS I Love You podcast, and they were talking about it from an accessibility standpoint. But I was curious to talk to you about this, not necessarily just from an accessibility standpoint, which there obviously is, but where do you fall on the difficult games? Should they have an easy mode? I know this is a conversation that comes up often, especially when you talk about From Software games and the like. Adam, do games need an easy mode?
That all depends. If the game is marketed to be a difficult game, I see no reason why they should ever be expected to have one. And Housemarque has had a history of being difficult. Not to mention Returnal is a roguelite, which are always hard games. Like, you look at Reddit threads that are like, what are the easiest ones? And people be like, nah, none of them really are, because it's permadeath. So you don't get to get away with a lot. So I don't know what people honestly expect. Like, I know that I guess we're getting used to in these days of like story mode difficulties, which, don't get me wrong, I like to abuse, because sometimes I like being overpowered as all hell when I play a game. But at the same time, if I ever get Demon's Souls the remake, which I want to do at some point, I would love to stream myself struggling with that game, because there is an intention of that. But I would never go into a From Software game, for example, and expect it to be simple. This is the same logic that people should be applying when we always make fun of parents or politicians who get mad at video games because they're too violent. Do your frickin' research. Nobody walked into Returnal, or at least I hope nobody walked into Returnal, without at least doing a little bit of looking into it and knowing that, oh, this looks like, literally, it looks like Ikaruga with the friggin' bullet hell stuff. It's just a different format of it. So when I saw the debates about, easy modes there, and this goes all the way back to when Sekiro and Demon's Souls Remake came out, and like Dark Souls has always caused the same question. And I'm like, you guys know they're hard games. Why are you expecting them to be easy? That's the same thing that people do with Kirby games, expecting them to be hard because they're too easy. They're baby easy, as some people say. But that's the game. And if you want specific levels or specific difficulties for specific games, then what's the point of the industry as a whole being an art form? Because, I mean, it's supposed to be subjective, right? You're supposed to let the creator do it as they want. If they want to make an intentionally hard game and nothing else, they can do it. And obviously it's worked because people really love the From Software games. The same goes for really easy games. And if you want to do as many options as possible, like what Outriders does with world tiers, so there's like 15 different levels of difficulty, or just having the old easy, medium, hard, or story easy, medium, hard, or whatever you want to do, I don't think there's any wrong answer as long as you're clear with that. Because I don't want to pick up a Final Fantasy game. Like, I don't want to pick up Final Fantasy 16 whenever that comes out and find out it's a From Software game all of a sudden. Like, I'd want to know if it's intentionally going to be difficult. which honestly, especially if you don't buy things day one, because that helps, if you Google it, you probably get your answer.
Yeah, I see the argument that people make that, oh, that's how the designers wanted to. It's an art form, leave it to there. But at the same time, it's a business as well. And I think that there's a lot being left on the table by, having your feet in the sand and saying, nope, this is the difficulty that we want. I think there's a big swath of gamers, and that's not just including, accessibility issues, but, as a dad, like I don't have a significant amount of time for gaming. And so for me to constantly, fight against 3-4 like bad guys to get to, to the next checkpoint, and that's what I've accomplished in a gaming session, like it doesn't necessarily work for me. And so like I tried Sekiro and I knew it was a hard game. Like I knew it was, but I was like, okay, like I'm going in knowing that this is a hard game, and I played it for like a weekend and I didn't even get past the first boss. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have the time to put into this for it to be a good game. And Sekiro totally interested me. I thought the setting was really cool. I thought the combat was really cool, but I don't have the time to get good in that game. And so for me, it's like, I like what you're doing and I'd like to be part of it, but I can't fit this in with me. And so I had to leave on it. And I get the idea that this is like their vision, but at the same time, there's more to a vision of a game than just our game is hard. Like there is an artistic component, there is a narrative component. And I think to just boil it down, that the whole gameplay structure is that it is hard. I don't think that's enough to carry a whole vision of a game. And I think by having that easy component, you're making it accessible that, I can dip my toes in as a first time player. And yeah, maybe my first From game is going to be played on easy, but then I'm going to start liking the gameplay loop and I'll play it harder and harder. And me playing the game as on easy doesn't take away the experience from someone who loves the hard aspects of From Software games or from Returnal. And so I think if they had added those features, it's something that makes it more accessible, gets more people in, and gets more people into the genre, and then they scale up. I know there are some people who say, but what about the platinum? If I go through and I, complete this game, in record time or whatever, and then someone just comes in on easy mode, like I get where you're coming from, and that could easily be just adjusted with the fact that there are games that have trophies tied behind. You have to beat it at a certain difficulty level. I know I think it's the first Last of Us does it. I know Wolfenstein: The New Order does it. Like you can have that sort of platinum trophy hidden behind a difficulty wall. But I think there are people who want to get into those games who just don't have the time commitment, don't have the skill, or just don't have the interest in putting that in to get good to the point that they can just complete a game, not even complete it, but let's just say beat it.
Well, there's a lot to unpack with that. First off, you said that, a vision shouldn't just be limited to, say, like the gameplay difficulty, which I think is doing a disservice to some games where it's not just the fact that they're really hard. Dark Souls is a lot of lore that I think people are not aware of, and this is coming from somebody who doesn't even play them. I just know a lot from what I've heard. And then secondly, the reality is there's so many games out there that if Returnal is just too difficult for you, like there are so many other games out there that I don't think it's worth Housemarque or From Software or a single developer to suddenly have to change their vision, because sure, there might be more people that want to play that game if there was an easier difficulty, and they might make more money. But again, like I said, this is what art is. Like not every painting is made to satisfy every customer. Not every album is released to satisfy every person. That's why we have genres. That's why we have metal, we have pop music, we have rap music, we have classical, we have even the weirder off niche genres. Same goes for films. So I think I would just make the argument again that, not everybody's going to enjoy every single game that's out there. So, and I think when people complain, and I'm trying to be nice about it, and I understand it too, because I would love to play all the From Software games because they look like a great time, and I've tried to play the original Dark Souls, and it kicked my ass. And like you, I said the same thing. I'm like, I don't really have time for this. Now, the difference is because I stream, there's maybe more of an incentive to get my ass handed to me, because now people get to watch me get my ass handed to me.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's worth something. But yeah, no, on my own, like, again, like I don't play these hard games, and I stay away from them knowing this, because I know I'm probably not going to get my money's worth out of it, because I'm going to play it for like an hour or two and then be done with it. And that's $60+ that I've just pissed out the window. However, that being said, clearly a lot of people like it, and it's clearly doing well enough that they're okay with limiting it to that because they're making the money that they want to. I guess they're budgeting it well. They're not over marketing and advertising like a lot of companies do, like Square Enix might have done with Avengers. So I think it's a fair conversation to have, because I think it does suck to have that fear of missing out, but at the same time, like, we don't live in the 80s anymore where every game was intentionally hard. We also now live in the age of streaming where if you really just are too challenged by a game, you can always just watch somebody else do it.
Yeah.
So if you really want to know, like, there's other ways around it that isn't playing it. And if playing it is that important to you, well, again, I don't want to be the asshole in the room, but like, sorry, we can't make every single game to be something you want. You know, in the same vein that, like, I would love to enjoy every game that's ever released, but I know that there's going to be a lot of things out there, like Fortnite, for example, is the biggest example of I don't get it, and I just let it go away because there's 10 million other things I can be doing. So to simplify it down, it's just, I get why people see a new release, because granted the PS5 market is really low right now because A, pandemic, and B, new console. We're still in the first 7 months, I think, now?
I think this is now the 6th month. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we got in like November-ish. So yeah, we're definitely getting into like month 6, 7. So we're only like half a year into this console's life cycle. So yeah, the library's a little bit small. A big game comes out. It looks drop dead gorgeous, and it looks like it could be a lot of fun, but it's really hard. And I guess a lot of people were just hardened by that.
Yeah.
But this also happened with Sekiro and 3 Dark Souls games and the Demon Souls remake, and we keep having this conversation, and these games don't fail to make money. So it just comes down to like that. People assume that everything has to be for them, and I'm just sitting here being like, man, like, if it's not for me, it's not for me. I'm not gonna force a developer to do something they don't want to do, even if it would actually keep them from making money. Like, even let's say that Returnal doesn't make them any money, like they actually lose money, it's still on them. If that's what they want to do, like, it's up to them.
Yeah, and this is actually a point I was just going to bring up, in that I think with Housemarque trying to go into that AAA sort of experience, and I think that's what Returnal is trying to be, is that's their first foray into AAA, especially the fact that they are charging full retail price. I think they're going to kind of get a little shocked when they kind of realize, like, oh, like, we're trying to be a AAA game in a niche market, and I would say that from like the Dark Souls-esque games are a niche market, in that they're not going to appeal like a Ghost of Tsushima is.
Well, they may not make the same amount of money, but I think they'll still turn enough of a profit to be like, okay, this is something interesting if we want to dip our toes in a second time.
Yeah, and the other thing I was going to say about the Housemarque is that they're saying, like, you know, we've always been known for our hard games, and that is true. Like, their games are the old arcade style. But I think one of the key differences is that before, when you had things like Super Stardust, or when you had what were the other ones? What's that one that they had that like launched with the PS4?
Oh,
do you remember the one I'm talking about?
I know exactly, and I can't think. It was a Galaxy or Galaxy?
No,
I
don't remember what it's called. But anyways, their games were more arcadey, and that's, yeah. You Google that while I'm going on my rant. So the problem is that those games were score chasers, right? There wasn't really a story to them. It's, hey, you're just doing this to collect the points, get as many points as you could. And for me, that was a gameplay where it's like, yep, because I am being challenged by myself. I am trying to do better than I was the last time. But now there's this narrative component with Returnal that even if I were to get the game, like, I wouldn't be able to complete the narrative aspect because I'm not going to put the time in to get good at it. So I think that that's a bit of an issue.
It was a Resogun, by the way. Sorry, I just looked it up.
That's it, Resogun. And then the last thing, like, talking about the artistic vision, is like, I don't think it's compromising it, though. Like I said, I think there's multiple aspects to a vision.
It might not be compromising, but I still think it's their choice, right?
Well, I think it's no different than when you have like a movie, like a foreign film that, you know, does subtitles. It's not like there's this French movie and they're like, fuck you want to watch it, you got to learn French before you can like watch the movie. Like, they'll put subtitles in.
Is that a fair comparison, though? Because, I mean, it's not like you play a hard video game and you don't know how to play video games.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with subtitles, you don't know French.
I don't know, and maybe it is isn't a good comparison, but I find that, there is that aspect that they make it accessible for those who,
Like,
may not
I
have,
don't
who
know
may
if there's
struggle.
actually like a good analogy that can match it in any other industry, because games is kind of a very different kind of medium, because it's not like it's not like you watch an action movie and then there's like a Dark Souls of action movies where they're just like really hard. Like, it doesn't really exist. So we're kind of like, we're talking about something that's pretty like specific to gaming only.
Mhm.
So it really just comes, it's look, I don't have a problem with either argument. It's just I always lean in the way of like, let the artist do what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not trying to force, like, hey, you have to do this, but I would, if I was sitting at that boardroom table, I would be advocating, like, yeah, we need to make an easy or an accessible way to
I mean, look,
to make this
if
that
you
we
were
can
gonna
reach more
if you
people.
were saying, hey, do you want an easy mode in Dark Souls? I'd be like, fuck yeah, I'd love to play some like easy Dark
Yeah,
Souls. But they don't, so I'm like, okay, then I guess I'll find something
yeah.
else. And
No, and that's
if From
100%.
Software
It's
is
their
okay
choice.
with that, that's okay. And if they're making the money they think that they deserve to make, then that's good on them. Obviously, it's worked out for them. And if Housemarque, even if they lose money, they lose money, and they'll learn from that, and they'll probably go back to like a smaller budget or something like that, because it seems like their vision is these kind of games. So, but if they happen to make a bunch of money, and I feel like they will, because I think a lot of the Dark Souls like kind of crowd is going to lean towards this, especially because PS5 is desperate for some more games. So I think a lot of people are willing to give this a shot and work with it. So I think it'll work in their favor. But yeah, no, I don't really think there's a wrong answer in the conversation. It's just, if you're going to put the gun to my head and tell me which one I want, I'm going to let the artists do what they want to do, because the second that we start making them think that they have to add these things in, they become like every company that decided for a long period of time that every game needs a multiplayer, and it screws up the single player. So I try to be careful in saying you have to have this in here, because as soon as you say you have to have this in here, they start focusing on that instead of focusing on the thing that's going to make the game better.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from. I think they're leaving something on the table.
And they
I think if it
absolutely
was me,
are.
I think it's
There's
their decision to
definitely
make,
money
but I
to be
think they're
made
making the wrong one.
otherwise. I guarantee, like, yeah, if they
Yeah.
had easy mode, they probably make another. They could probably make another million copy sales easy,
Mhm.
probably based on the hardware itself. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, and I'm always happy to have these kind of ones on here.
Yeah. It's a very interesting conversation, and to be honest, I'm going to throw it to our audience. Like, we have a lot of people who've joined us now, and if you're watching this, and go in the comments, like, let us know, should there be an easy mode for Returnal, or do you think like companies are leaving something on the table by keeping their games hard?